I was in the hospital and journaling, and I had made up my mind that I just wasn't even going to try anymore, that I was going to go home after they released me from the hospital. I was going to tie up some loose ends, write letters to my kids. I actually did this. I came home, wrote letters to my kids, my family members, and I was not planning on being here anymore. And then I kind of went back the next day and I said, okay, there's one more thing I'm going to try. And if this doesn't work, that's it. I'm done.
Hello, everyone. Adam with Carnivore today, and today we have a very special guest, Elissa. So, Elissa, for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name's Elissa. I am from Austin, Texas. I'm a mom of three, and I've been carnivore for over a year, just over a year, lion diet for 9 months, and I'm surviving lupus without any medication right now. So,
Wow. So, just so everyone knows, Elissa and I did meet down in Austin, Texas, which was kind of cool. And you had mentioned that that was one of your first times actually out of the house in a while. So, can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
yeah, that was my first time out of the house, aside from just short grocery shopping trips or to my desk job. I hadn't been out of the house in quite a long time, at least over a year. And, I had some health problems that had been brewing for several years. And then they just kept getting worse and worse. I had several long hospital stays. And I was in the hospital, in and out of the hospital for months, several times a month. And so that's, when I started healing from carnivore, I think maybe I had been on carnivore for about 8 months whenever I met you in Austin. And I was already doing so much better. I hadn't been to the hospital in a few months. And I felt like I always say, like almost like a normal person. I wouldn't say, feeling great and fabulous, but like all the time. But just, the fact that I don't need medication for things and I'm not in the hospital is a miracle in and of itself.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, when you had said that, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a story that needs to be told. It never ceases to amaze me how changing the way that you eat can have such a profound effect on a person's health. So I kind of want to rewind a little bit and go back to maybe when your health condition started to worsen or when you started to notice issues and problems.
Yeah. Well, just I heard a statistic once that said that for the average person with an autoimmune disease, it takes 8 to 10 years to actually get a diagnosis. And it's all that time you're having all these mystery symptoms, and you know, the doctors usually just can't pinpoint it for that long. And that's just about what it was for me too. I started having these strange kind of flare ups and, swelling in my knees and pains, stomach pains, weird rashes. And the doctors back then mentioned a few times it does seem autoimmune, possibly, but they kept saying it's not lupus, but maybe rheumatoid arthritis. Um, but the fact that they would think of lupus for so long and, every time I was just like, "Well, at least it's not lupus."
Right.
Um, but yeah, it got worse and worse over the years, and when I first started having all these symptoms, I I asked my doctor, like, "What should I do?" And they asked me, "Have you heard of the autoimmune protocol diet?" It's where you just do this elimination diet. So I looked it up online, just kinda on my own. I started cutting out the different food groups, not all at once, but just kind of I would wait and see if I was still having these reactions, and I would look, okay, what else can I take out? So I had immediately stopped sugar, all the processed foods. I started eating more vegetables, and then I took out dairy, um, eggs, And I seem to be doing so much better with just not eating out anymore and not eating sugar anymore. But that's when my weight problems began. Um, I was unable to gain weight or hold on to weight. Once I stopped eating the sugar and the processed foods, I got to dangerously low weight over the year, like over the last few years. And because, I was limited in what I could eat because I felt so much better not eating all these things I had eliminated, then I just kind of kept going with it. And I had to eat like every 2 hours. If I stretched it to 3 or 4 hours, I would end up feeling so sick that I would feel like I was going to pass out. So
Oh,
I
wow.
just lived this life of constantly snacking for the last probably 6 years until I found carnivore. um, but over the last 6 years, I have been mostly plant based. I would eat just the like healthiest you can imagine kale smoothies, spinach salads every day, watercress and nuts and seeds, and just every superfood power plant you can imagine. And it's like the more that I ate those foods, the worse and worse and worse my health got. And so that kind of brings me up to where I found carnivore.
Okay, awesome. What kind of medications and or therapies and treatments did they give you once they actually did diagnose you with lupus?
Well, um, they wanted to put me on, of course, uh, the steroids is like the first line of defense. Like, no matter where you go, who you talk to, let's get some steroids in you first to bring all the inflammation down. Um, but being, type 2 diabetic at the time, I it made my blood sugars go through the roof. I had to go back to the hospital several times anytime I took steroids. Um, and they were wanting to put me on some really heavy duty medications that I just right off the bat I said, let me just give this carnivore thing a try first before I go on immunosuppressants. And I mean, some of them are like chemo treatments,
Mhm.
the way that the side effects are and everything. So um, I chose not to go
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned type 2 diabetes. Do you know, like, how did that come about? Because, well, normally with type 2 diabetes, most people are overweight, or they're eating lots of carbs and things like that. But it doesn't sound like that you had either one of those things going on.
Yeah, when I first got diagnosed as like pre-diabetic, I was a little bit overweight. You know, maybe 30 pounds ish overweight, but I guess because I was tall, it didn't bother me. Like I appreciated having a little bit of weight on me. And but, so that's kinda around the time that I started getting sick, and my doctor said, like, "You're pre-diabetic now. If you cut out the sugars, watch what you eat, you could turn this around and never actually become fully type 2 diabetic." So, that was when it was kinda like a wake-up call. I gotta stop eating all this sugar because I was a total sugarholic. I would have chocolate cake for breakfast every day. Like, it was bad. And, but so yeah, but once I had dropped all that weight and eating healthier, I still was so sensitive to like if I had um even the low glycemic, foods, like they say watermelon is low glycemic index. And so I would eat some watermelon and I would feel so sick. My blood sugars would go through the roof. And even I remember one time it was half of a kiwi, a tiny little kiwi, cut it in half, and I had my salmon for lunch and some vegetables and that little bitty piece of kiwi, and my blood sugar was like I think near 200 for hours afterward.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so that's when the doctor wanted to put me on metformin, and I told her, look. I'm not trying to be stubborn, but like, the first thing everyone says is it helps you lose weight. I'm like, I can't afford to lose any more weight. And the other thing is, it was supposed to cause some pretty bad stomach upset. And I was already dealing with so many stomach upsets. Every time I ate, it was like I was having like an allergic reaction to everything, it seemed like. So I just, again, I was like, I filled the prescription, I brought it home, and I just couldn't make myself try it. I was just too scared.
Well, that's good, I guess, that you didn't fall into the prescription trap with diabetes or the lupus. So that's probably kind of helped at least a little bit in your recovery efforts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I used to be on so many medications, that I just got really I think at one point I was, like, on 16 medications, and I was still probably in my late 20s. And, when you go into the doctor and they say, "Are you still taking this and this?" And they go through your chart. And I remember finally a doctor one day says, "You're taking a lot of medications for being so young." And it was kind of a wake up call, like, yeah, you're right. But as I'm sure we may get into this later, but like I had so many health problems, and chronic pain that I dealt with that, there was so many medications. And I finally, once I was like done with the medications, I really wanted to avoid taking them at all costs.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing that you did that. So you were on all these medications. Let's just dive into that right now. Um, so what exactly were all the medications for?
So I was on for several years, I was taking so much ibuprofen and Tylenol daily that my doctor finally put me on, like, sent me to pain management, and they put me on Celebrex, which is like, you know, it was hard for me to even take that leap at the time because, again, I was still very young. And I remember the Celebrex commercials being for like elderly grandparents being able to like go on a walk with their grandkids again. And I'm like, "Ah, I shouldn't be taking this," but they told me it would be like a more gentle version of ibuprofen, which was a lie. It's actually really hard on your liver, but it's also only for short-term use, which nobody told me until I had been taking it for over 2 years. But,
Oh, goodness.
it did help me. It helped me with my pain. It helped lower my migraines. I used to have chronic migraine, which is 16 or more migraine days per month. And so I was on several medications for that. I had tried preventatives, like a daily preventative, and then Imitrex, which is like something you take when you first feel a migraine coming on, and then nausea meds that come along with the migraines, as well as I was on antidepressants. I tried several anti-anxiety medications over the years because I would have such bad anxiety. And let's see, what else was I on? Well, going to pain management, they had tried several heavy narcotics and muscle relaxers. There was just so many medications that I, at the time, felt like I needed in order to function. Without those medications, I was in so much pain. I couldn't sit in a car and drive even for 5 minutes without the pain in my back becoming so severe. I do have degenerative disc disease in my back and scoliosis. So it just being in the car was really uncomfortable.
Oh my goodness. That's quite the haul of medication. So have you had any luck in getting rid of some of those things?
Yes, I don't even deal with back pain anymore, which is insane. Like, that's something I never thought would be possible. I was diagnosed with the degenerative disc disease and arthritis in my back when I was still in my 20s. Um, I had started having back problems when I was actually 12, and I was going to physical therapy because again, just sitting in class for me in a desk was so unbearable, like the muscle spasms I would have in my back. And to
Mhm.
think now I have no back pain day to day is just wild.
Wow, that's incredible. Um, so so how did you find out about the carnivore diet? Like, what was it that led you to that?
Um, so the first time that I heard about it, my best friends, like my best friend told me that her parents were on the carnivore diet. And I was so worried about them. I was like, "Oh, no, I have to research this because this is not healthy. It's gonna clog their arteries. They're gonna die of heart attack." Like, I have to. So I kinda tried to do a little bit of research on it to show my friend, "This is why you need to tell your parents to stop it immediately." And, I came back empty-handed. I just thought I had found Dr. Berry and Dr. Chafee, and I'm like, whatever, there's some hidden motive. They're quacks, like, they're not even they can't be serious. And so I just told her, "I don't think it's healthy," but that was that. She said, "They're not gonna change their mind." But it wasn't until a few months later, I got so sick and I was having, such bad, like, allergic reactions to everything that I ate. I realized day to day, my list of foods that I was able to eat was just shrinking and shrinking. And finally, I realized, okay, the only thing I'm able to eat without having these reactions is meat. And so I did that for a couple of days. And then I Googled, can somebody live off of just meat? Because I thought for sure, just any day now, I'm just going to die if all I'm eating is meat. And, and then all these articles popped up on how harmful the carnivore diet is, and it jogged my memory, "Oh, the carnivore diet, this is a thing." So, I jumped down the rabbit hole again, did all the research, and, it was scary because I heard so many weight loss stories, and but at this point, I was probably sub 10% body fat. I was a skeleton. It was so dangerous, my weight being so low,
Mhm.
and, there were some procedures when I would have to go to the hospital, there were some procedures that the doctors weren't even able to do, and their notes would put, like, "Unable to see this," or "Unable to perform this because of low body weight," and, I was scared, but so I thought, maybe if I join a group, so I joined Steak and Butter Gang because um, for me it was like even though I wasn't able to work at the time, money was really low. Either I could continue trying to go to the doctors and come back with no answers or more medication, or I could use this, it's actually cheaper than a copay to one doctor's visit to join this group and be able to ask, doctors questions. Um, and so I joined that group. I asked questions of all the doctors that visited the group that month, and I just watched a lot of YouTube. That there was actually three people that gave me the courage to actually go for it and, that had stories of gaining weight on carnivore, and so one of them was Rebecca Heischman, um, and then also Bella from Steak and Butter Gal, she also gained weight, and then, um, Ribeye Rach, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but,
Yep.
uh, her story also gave me the courage to go ahead and give it a shot. So, um, things were really scary and really dark during that time. I had actually made up my mind. Um, I was in the hospital and journaling, and I had made up my mind that I just wasn't even going to try anymore. That I was going to go home after they released me from the hospital. I was going to tie up some loose ends, write letters to my kids. I actually did this. I came home, wrote letters to my kids, my family members, and I was not planning on being here anymore.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I just felt like I was such a burden that to see my kids so worried about me day in and day out, and um, I just couldn't live like that anymore. And so I had pretty much made that decision in my mind. And then I kind of went back the next day and I said, okay, there's one more thing I'm going to try. And if this doesn't work, that's it. I'm done. And I read over my journal just the other day because, I'm like, I'm going to try this. And if not, then I'm done. And I know it sounds crazy, but I'm going to try carnivore. And so that's what I did, and it was like from day 1, I started to come back to life. I was right there on the edge of I was on my deathbed several times, and then, little by little, every day, I felt better and better and stronger, and, I'm just a whole new person, and I'm stronger in many ways than I was before. Like, before I got sick, but, just the fact that I don't have my back problems anymore. I'm not type 2 diabetic anymore. I'm no longer on, any anti-anxiety, antidepressants. There's so many things that it's healed, like, issues that I've had my whole life are gone.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. So inspiring for anyone out there that is in a similar situation as yours to know that it is possible to receive this healing simply by eating a specific way. Um, so, what exactly were you in the hospital for that last time?
So all of my organs were inflamed and enlarged. Um, my heart was trying to give out. um,
Wow,
it was, yeah, my blood pressure and pulse got so low that the monitors were constantly beeping to let them know. So they actually had to admit me onto the third floor, which is for heart patients. And but I was having so many issues. My liver was shutting down, my gallbladder. They almost took out my gallbladder several times, but they ended up saying, you're in such a fragile state, and taking out your gallbladder isn't going to do much when all of your organs are inflamed. We can't take them all out. So, but I'm grateful now because now my gallbladder is not having any issues. So I'm really glad that that decision was made.
wow, that's incredible. I can't even imagine having to go through that. Having to come to the point where you're writing letters to your children. I couldn't even imagine that. My journey has been a little bit different than yours. It doesn't sound like it's been quite as bumpy, but yeah, I can empathize with being at a point where you're just so frustrated and hopeless. I was in a similar situation with brain damage and a lot of embarrassing motor tics and balance issues and things like that out in public. Where it's very frustrating for me, but not to the level where you were with the hospitalizations. Let's go into your diet. Like you basically said that, there was a lot of things that you ate that caused the issues. What was actually causing issues for you?
I think it was just all the plants. I think, uh, I thought I was doing such a good thing of most of the vegetables that I ate were raw. But it was like every time I would try to add another, health food in, like, and everything was an attempt to like, what can I eat that I'm not going to have a reaction to, but it's not going to raise my blood sugar too much, and um, it was impossible. It was all going to do that to me, and oddly enough, there's if you try to Google like natural ways to cure lupus or something like that, I think her name is Dr. Goldner, and she's a plant-based doctor who claims that she had lupus and she cured it with her Goodbye Lupus protocol. She has a book and everything. Um, and it's basically get all of the superfoods, all the fruits and veggies, and put them all in a blender and drink this smoothie, have no animal products, and within a few weeks or a month, your lupus will be gone. And I was dumb enough to try it, and I had the worst reaction. I mean, my stomach would blow up as if I was 9 months pregnant. And again, I was just skin and bones. So it was it was so painful to have my stomach stretch that much. And it happened every time I ate. And also I had really bad psoriasis that would it was all over my forehead, my neck, my chest. It was just all over my scalp. And yeah, I even did like a food sensitivity test where you send your blood in and it came back with like hundreds of food reactions.
Oh,
I'm
Lord.
like, I really can't eat anything. So, um, and I went carnivore about a year ago. And when I first started, I had added back in eggs and dairy because I thought, like, I really need to gain this weight. And I thought dairy would help. And I was in such an inflamed state that I started to feel better, but I still was having some flare ups, and I didn't understand why. I was still having like tremendous pain in my joints and a lot of stomach issues. So it did take me a few months to realize that I had to do lion because the and the pork um, were really, really causing me a lot of pain. So, I mean, I'm hoping that one day I can get to a point where I can have those things again. I don't necessarily want to be on lion diet forever, but um, but I do feel so much better when I'm doing like a low histamine lion diet for now.
Okay. So you have been carnivore for roughly a year and things are going much, much better for you. At what point did you notice the dairy was causing issues and then you had to transition to essentially eating ruminant meats only?
Um, I think it was about 3 months in, maybe maybe 2 months for the dairy. I would kind of intermittent I would try, regular milk, and I realized that didn't work, so then I thought, well, heavy cream doesn't have that much lactose in it, so I was having heavy cream in my coffee every day, um, and I noticed that on days where like I would have my morning cup of coffee, but then if I had like a decaf later, sometimes I would find an excuse to have it 2 more times. So the more of that heavy cream that I had, the more inflamed I would be, especially the following day. I would wake up with just feeling like I had been run over by an 18-wheeler like several times. So it was just so painful, and so I decided, "Okay, let me take out the dairy and see if there's any difference," and wow, it was like immediate, I dropped so much inflammation, so
Yeah, that's awesome. So anyone that's listening, that is a thing. So it happened with me as well. I dropped the dairy. The dairy for me was skin issues and problems. It wasn't so much inflammation. Well, I guess you could call it inflammation. I would start to get acne and yeah, just all sorts of skin problems. And it really sucks because I like the carnivore ice cream.
I know.
Yeah, it tastes so good, but I know every time I have it that I'm gonna have skin problems for like 2 or 3 months before it clears up, and,
Wha
just can't have it, so I go along with I try to remind myself of what Doctor Berry says all the time, that, milk is for babies, so
Yeah.
so what does your diet look like, for on a typical day now?
Oh, it's very exciting. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
It's a lot, okay? Everyone get your pens, paper, it's a long list. I eat lamb 3 times a day, sometimes 4, and that's it.
Oh, wow, okay. So
Yeah, for
no
the
ice cream or chocolate cake or nothing like that?
nope. I first, I guess it's been a few months now because for a long time it was like any ruminant meat I was eating. Obviously, mostly beef because it's the cheapest and most available. But then it was like mostly beef and lamb and occasionally some bison or venison. But I just started realizing I felt so much better when I ate the lamb. And I knew that if I needed to, like, let's say I needed to take my kids to the school or have a meeting, or whenever you guys were all in Austin and I wanted to be feeling well leading up to that, I was like, okay, I'm going to only eat lamb because I knew that my psoriasis wasn't flaring up that way. My just everything, less pain and swelling and things like that, less lupus symptoms. So, um, I just yeah, and then I started craving mostly lamb. It's strange. I don't even if you put a piece of lamb and a piece of beef in front of me, like the most tender ribeye ever, I would still choose the lamb, even though that's all I've been eating for months. I'm just not getting tired of it. It's like the best thing I've ever eaten 3 times a day, sometimes 4.
Wow. So it's like your medicine then.
Yeah, yeah.
So can you speculate on why, it is that you feel so much better eating the lamb?
So, I've asked myself this and other people too. Some people have said that it is higher in the omegas, and maybe that's just what my body's needing right now. Um, Another thing, I mean, there's several other things they say that it's higher in, like thiamine and um, yeah, a few other things. But I'm thinking maybe the nutritional profile is just slightly different from beef, or it could be that it's lower histamine. I know that I am sensitive to histamines, so maybe it's just that big of a difference. Because I noticed that, and I do still eat beef liver. I will say that about once or twice a week, I'll have some beef liver, and I do get a little bit of a skin reaction even just by having, like, half an ounce of beef liver, but
Oh, wow.
overall, if I don't have that beef liver for, like, a week or 2, I start to not I feel a little bit out of balance, and, I think it's because I most likely have the MTHFR gene, and so, I've heard that, there's something in beef liver that helps your body, like with the synthesis of absorbing other nutrients from your food. So maybe that's why.
Interesting. So is it, having that gene, is that something that you ever considered getting tested or
Yeah, I might get tested for it one day. I know that it's really common. I think I heard a statistic that like 90 something percent of people with an autoimmune condition have that gene. So it's pretty likely that I have it, but I don't think my approach to life would be any different whether I have it or not. I'm
right?
like, I know what I feel better eating. So I'm just going with it.
Wow. So a lot of people would look at your diet and say, "That's too restrictive. I couldn't do that." So do you feel like it's restrictive?
um, I mean, in a way, yes, it is restrictive in the sense of, your diet, your foods that you can eat, but it's not restrictive, like in the way of when I was restricted to the hospital bed because restricted to my bed and restricted to my house for so long. And I wasn't even well enough to work. Um, I was so weak that I couldn't even open my own bottle of water. I would get the strength to get up and batch cook a bunch of ground beef, maybe once a week, and it would take another week for me to recover from that. to be feel well enough to go and sit on a stool in the kitchen and cook some more ground beef. So that was when I was that sick, that was the most restrictive thing. And it felt more restrictive when I was eating all those plant foods because there were so few things that I could eat. I would go to, let's say I had to be out and about and I wasn't able to pack my lunch. You can't just go in a gas station and buy something to eat when you're on that type of a restrictive diet. There's nothing in there that I could eat. And so it's actually less restrictive being carnivore because I know that if I get stuck somewhere, I could at least go get some burger patties from somewhere. Um, so it's a lot better this way.
Yeah, I found that it's the same with me. It's not restrictive at all. I feel like I'm living like a king, eating beef every single day, and ribeyes, maybe 25% of the time. It's like, feel like royalty, especially
I
with
know.
all the issues that I don't have to deal with now. It's absolutely incredible. Are your kids old enough to kind of see what was going on with you? And if so, what was their thoughts and reaction to, your transformation?
Yeah, so well, my youngest is 13, and then my middle child is 18, and then my oldest is 21. So they've definitely seen just over the years what I've been dealing with and my struggle all this time to stop having all these bad food reactions and to put on weight um and then when my health hit rock bottom. So they know that it's 100% carnivore that has helped me through this. And my weight, by the way, I forgot to mention, I am at a healthy weight finally. I'm absolutely loving feeling healthy, looking healthy, not being so frail, and honestly, just having my curves back. I'm like so happy. um, but yeah, my kids have seen me. I was balding, when I was at my lowest weight. I had lost over half of my hair. And
Oh, goodness.
my kids will tell me like, "Wow, your hair is really growing back." And it's all the way down to the bottom of the back again. And I it's kind of funny now because I have all these little baby hairs that frizz up, which I used to be embarrassed by, but now I'm proud of them. Like those used like 6 months ago, these were bald spots. So I'll take them. Yeah. But yeah, I have gotten my kids to eat more animal products than they did before, but they're just old enough to be able to, like, if they were younger, I think I would be able to say, "Okay, kids, this is how we're eating now."
Right.
And but now they're older, they get their own food. And my older two kids will get my younger child like a lot of unhealthy food. And I'm like, no, like at least eat the meat first before you have all that other stuff.
Right.
So
That's cool. So has has your improved health helped you at all with your relationship with your children?
yeah, definitely. I think a lot because when I was depressed, I really depressed and I had so much anxiety. I was a lot more of a nagging mom. I mean, when your brain is full of anxiety and it's telling you that, okay, your kids are going to their friend's house, like something bad's going to happen. That's what your brain is screaming at you. And so, of course, I'm going to tell my kid on the way out the door, call me when you get there and text me, let me know you're okay after an hour. And, just it was this constant. If they were like, 2 minutes late, not texting me back, I'm having a full blown panic attack. That's not healthy for anybody.
Right.
So, I would say they have a lot more of a relaxed mom now. Um, and, you know, also just they know that I'm in a better place. I'm not constantly worried about that. Um, and I can remember things a lot better now. Um, as you can probably imagine, when I was in that frail state, it was hard for me to form sentences at times because I just, and I would have conversations with my kids or a doctor, and 10 minutes later, I couldn't even remember anything we talked about. I couldn't remember, anything that happened the previous day. Sometimes I would wake up in the night and look around and not know where I was. It was like
Wow.
my brain and everything were shutting down. So just the fact that I can remember conversations that I've had with my kids, that means a lot to them. Because for a while they thought I just didn't care. It's like we already talked about this. But it's like, no, I promise I'm trying to remember, but I just my brain just wasn't working.
For those that have lupus like symptoms, what would be your suggestions for them in terms of how they should approach their diet?
I would say try lion. The lion diet. Um, at least I always tell people, at least for 3 days. It kind of breaks my heart how reluctant people are to try lion diet. Um, Oftentimes in like the carnivore groups that I'm in, I'll suggest it and people are like, there's no way that I can go without dairy, or there's no way that I'm giving up eggs, or and I'm like, it's not forever. It's just try it for 3 days, because for me personally, when I do have something that kind of flares up my symptoms, if I it's usually by the 3rd day that I notice a difference. I'll notice an improvement, whether it be, like, let's say if I try a little bit of dairy just to see if I can tolerate it, which I haven't done in a long time, but, I would have this reaction. Usually my psoriasis would definitely break out, and then I would have a lot of joint pain, but it was like by that 3rd day, most of that was clearing up, and so that way it's like a test, whether or not you should keep going with it, or again, or if you just have something like an event that you wanna feel well for. Just give it 3 days of just lion diet. It clears out your system. It really helps, for people to just get in, like, an uninflamed state. So, I would say for any health problem, but, especially autoimmune, just give lion diet a try, at least for 3 days. I have not seen anybody who gave it a 3-day testing period and came back saying, "Nope, didn't help." It's like every time somebody actually gives it a try, they're like, "Holy cow, this made the biggest difference I've ever seen." And so I'm so happy when people actually give it a try and feel like how good they can actually feel.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, anybody can do anything for 3 days, right?
Yeah.
You were on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. So I know that at least through Todd that he mentioned that you never turn your camera on. So
Yeah.
during that time when you're on anti-anxiety, do you think that you ever would have done anything like this, what you're doing right now?
Absolutely not. No. And, I always, my whole life, I ran anxious. It's just kind of probably traumatic childhood did that to me. But, you know, I, I realized when I was like in my late 20s that I was so tired of letting fear ruin my life. And so I actually set out on a mission to just overcome my fears. And, one of my big fears, my greatest fear, I was afraid of heights. I was just terrified of even like driving on a bridge, or, God forbid I have to go up some stairs without a rail or something like that. It was like even going to the top of a slide with my kids when they were little, I would have that feeling in my stomach of fear. And so that was the first one that I decided I was going to overcome. So, I took baby steps, but I would put myself in situations where, okay, I'm going to go to the top of this hill, or I'm going to go to the top of these stairs. And I ended up going on top of one of those big they call it a cherry picker or a scissor lift.
Hmm.
And I was doing a painting job a couple years ago, and I went to the very top of this two-story church building and was totally comfortable with it. So it's like, okay, another big fear that I had was I was terrified of snakes. And so I was like, when my daughter, she was 8 at the time, I think, she said she wanted a pet snake for her birthday. And I was like, "Oh, no. Am I gonna let my fear stop my daughter from having a pet that she wants or an experience that she wants? Because I don't want her to be afraid of snakes like the way that I am." And so we got her this tiny little, it was a Kenyan sand boa, and it was just a few inches long, just like more like a worm. And so that was our beginner snake, and unfortunately, that little guy didn't live more than a month. And but we ended up being gifted 2 more snakes, and they were bigger. They were, yeah, much bigger. And I was so terrified but I made myself do it because I wanted to overcome this fear. Every morning before the kids woke up, I would go and take the snake out of the cage, and I would hold the snake, and I would be like sweating and shaking. But I'm like, I'm gonna get over this. And um, after a while, I was so comfortable with them. I looked forward to it. I would let them hang out on my shoulder or around my wrist, and wrapped around my neck, and be
Oh, wow.
totally comfortable with it. And so that's kind of my approach with this. I've had stage fright and camera fright for my whole life. And there's so many days that, even though I'm in this Zoom chat in the steak and butter game, almost every day of the week, I never, ever, ever have my camera on because it's just so terrifying for me. And so I thought, you know what? I'm tired of being afraid. It's time. It's time for me to just do it. And just
Yeah.
so this will be my first time having the
Awesome.
camera on.
Well, it's a new era for Alyssa, and I'm so thankful that you did agree to come on and discuss lupus because this is definitely something that needs to get out there. Your story needs to be heard by as many people as possible. That just making a simple dietary change can make a world of difference, not only for your health, but you're encouraging others around you in your immediate family, your community, and those that watch this. And it's extremely, extremely important. You don't have to be actually on camera in order to make that kind of an influence, but it definitely helps.
Yeah.
So, what does Alyssa like to do besides eat lamb? Do you have any hobbies or anything that you enjoy?
um, Honestly, not right now. I know that sounds really boring, but I'm just I'm just so grateful to be alive that and I'm still a kind of busy mom. I say kind of because my kids are like one of them is out of the house. He's grown and on his own, and I just try to make sure he texts me at least once a week. But my daughters are both here with me, and they need to go places or just I think being a present parent. Um, I don't feel the need to find a hobby, or I don't feel the need to like, oh, I just need to I think when they were younger, it's like, oh, I need a break. I just need to get out of the house. If I could just go to the grocery store alone. But now I'm like, I'm just so grateful for my time with them. Just being able to be home when they're home and us just spending like life together, just the everyday in between moments, not doing much. But we do like to go on walks. We enjoy being outside or, there's a dam nearby. It's called 5 Mile Dam. It's not too far from here. It's in San Marcos, Texas. And we like to go out there. There's nice areas to walk or sit by the water and just, watch nature, all the birds and the, bugs and everything. It's just, really enjoyable to get outdoors. But we do spend a lot of time outside.
Awesome. I love that. So, is there anywhere that uh, you are on social media? Like, I'm guessing that you probably don't have a YouTube channel.
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, I do have an Instagram account. I'm not super active on there. I'm not even sure what my name on Instagram is, like if I have some other name. But I could give that to you and maybe you could add it in the show notes. And yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to reach out for anything, if they need advice with the carnivore diet or anything else, like I'll give my Instagram handle to Adam and anyone
Awesome.
can feel free to reach out.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure that that's in the description below. So, is there anything that maybe we didn't talk about that you wanted to make sure that we talked about?
Um, I think we touched on pretty much all of it. I I oh, actually, I did want to add. So I mentioned that I had 16 or more migraines per month before.
Hmm.
Um, I do still get migraines, but now it's more like once a month, maybe twice a month, I'll have a migraine, and they're just not as severe as they used to be. Um, I mean, they used to get so bad that even with all the medicine that I had, I would still have to go to the hospital sometimes because the pain was that bad. That has really improved. But the other thing is, I'm also experiencing some hormonal healing. And I don't know if you're aware, but when a woman's weight gets really, really low, whether it be from sickness or it's really common with athletes who perform and they get really low body weight, or with people with eating disorders who get a really low body weight. Um, they usually end up losing their menstrual cycle,
Hmm.
and that happened to me, for, like, the last 2 years, I haven't had a menstrual cycle, and before that, it was I think I had maybe 1 or 2 within the year prior to that. So, really, about 3 years without a regular cycle, and, I I just turned 40 in August, so I was kinda thinking lately as after I hit my 1 year on carnivore, and I'm like, "Well, my cycle hasn't come back yet, and I'm 40, so maybe it's just menopause. Maybe it's just not gonna come back."
Hmm.
But, um, it as of last week, it came back.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I'm sorry if that's a little too much information for some people, but for me, it's a sign that my hormones are finally healing. My
Hmm.
whole body, every part of me is coming back online and coming back to life. And it's I think that once because your hormones, they really do affect everything in your body, not just, having a cycle, because I'm not having any more babies, that's for sure. But, I know that it can affect your bone density and everything like that, and that's what the doctors were most concerned about is once I stopped producing those hormones, then, your bone density goes down and you get, a lot of health risks with that. So, I'm just happy because I feel like I'm really getting there, and, I think that maybe I'm pretty hopeful I'm gonna be able to put lupus in full remission one day soon. Um, I am just 9 months on lion diet, 1 year on carnivore, and I just feel like I if I give it another year or 2, that's what I'm really hoping for, is that I'm gonna be in full remission with lupus.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you mentioned the migraines that you still have those. Do you think that might be associated with oxalate dumping, possibly?
I think it could be. Yeah, because I know I still go through bouts of oxalate dumping, so maybe that could be it.
Yeah, I know Sally Norton said there's a whole myriad of issues and things that are linked to the oxalates, and I had oxalate dumping for probably 3 or 4 months because I was eating raw vegan also just
Yeah.
prior to the carnivore diet. So, I fell into the trap of eat as much, spinach smoothies as you can and buy this special $700 blender that's going to pulverize it and, you know, so I can ingest the poison even in higher quantities, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And it definitely didn't work out to my favor for sure. So actually, one other thing that I wanted to ask you also is, have you had a chance to actually go back to speak with any of your doctors? And if so, like, what's their reaction to what you're going through?
I haven't. I just got so angry with some of them, to be honest. You know, the cardiologist, he told me as I'm laying there pretty much on my deathbed and I was frail and underweight, he told me, you need to just drop the rest of those animal products. And you look good other than that. You're nice and lean. You don't have too much to worry about. Just drop those animal products and you'll be okay.
Mm.
And I'm like, and so it and this is the cardiologist that I was referred to that was supposed to help me, and it was like he didn't even read through my chart or ask me any questions, and so I was like, "Well, I'm definitely not going back to him." But I can tell that my heart is having less problems for sure. There was a time that my heart like my heart rate, my heartbeat, they were so irregular, and so uncomfortable. It would keep me up at night. I felt like I was about to die almost every day because of the way my heart was beating. Um, and then my regular doctor, she yelled at me. She was was very unprofessional.
Wow.
But there was like a 1 year wait for me to get in with the rheumatologist, and I I asked her, like, "What am I supposed to do in the meantime?" And this was, before carnivore, but I was like, "Can you at least prescribe me some of the steroids to help bring down this inflammation? Like, I'm having to go to the hospital, like, every week, sometimes twice a week." And she yelled at me and was just like, "I'm not a lupus doctor. I
Oh,
cannot
goodness.
prescribe you medications for lupus." And she's like, "If you told me you had a sinus infection and you needed steroids for that, I could do that. But because you have lupus, like," and I was like, "Well, then don't put down what it's for." Just like I was like crying. When you're in a state like that, you feel like so desperate.
Mhm.
And it was like so many of the doctors were just afraid of me. They were afraid to, I guess I was a liability. They were afraid to prescribe the wrong thing. And if I end up dead, then they get blamed for it. So, you know, I had my first appointment with the rheumatologist. And through all this, the testing had been done. The lupus had been confirmed several times by several doctors. And when it finally came time to go back to the rheumatologist, after he told me all the medications he wanted to start me on, and I joined several lupus support groups, and I was looking at the chats in there and like, oh, talking about when they started this medication or that medication, and seeing everybody's reactions to it, and so many of them just resolved to like, this is just my life now. I'm just sick in bed 24/7. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna see how far carnivore can take me. So yeah,
Wow.
I don't think I'm gonna see any of those doctors again. But
Right. Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. Yeah, I really have no need to go to the doctor unless I break an arm or something like that. So I'm the captain of my own ship now. So
yeah,
yeah, just like Alyssa.
yeah.
So I have to ask this: what was it like for you meeting Bella in person?
Oh man, it was better than I could have imagined. She's just the sweetest person. Like, I was blown away at how sweet she was. Part of me was just like, "Why is she being so sweet to me?" Like but, yeah, everybody that I met, I just had the best time with all of y'all, and, I guess as a person who I see the YouTubers online and I see all these interviews, and so meeting them in person, I guess part of me kind of assumed they're not going to be the same person on camera, like, you know, but so many of them were. Even Dr. Baker and Dr. Chafee, they were the same exact people. Dr. Kiltz, he was adorable.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was just so I felt so honored that Bella just was so kind to me and considered me her friend and invited me out with you guys. So I'm so grateful for my, new carnivore family, and I feel like we're all like brethren
Yeah, right.
in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're all the odd person out, at least for now, until everyone understands that this is a proper human diet, or at least on the spectrum of a proper human diet. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Until then, we're the weirdos.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for spending this time with me and, opening up and sharing your journey as it has been so far. Definitely would love to have you back on the channel, in 6 months, a year, to see how things are progressing for you. And if anyone has any questions for Alyssa, you can post those in the comments below and I'll pass those on to her. And then we'll also make sure that her Instagram is linked in the description below so you can connect with her there. I just want to say thank you, Alyssa, for everything that you're doing for yourself, your family, and for everyone in general by reaching out with this message.
Oh, thank you so much for everything you're doing, Adam.